What's going on, people? My name is Antoine, this is ATM Tech, and welcome to the channel. So in front of me today I have the brand new, just announced Galaxy Z Fold 4 from Samsung. This is the latest and greatest out of the Galaxy folding lineup, and it's actually Samsung's first phone utilizing the Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm quite interested to see what the performance is like with some of the higher end emulators on this phone. But just to run you through some quick specs, as I said, this is using the Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1. This device comes with 12GB of RAM, although I do believe there may be a 16GB variant. The model I have here has 12GB of RAM and 256GB of built-in storage. Unfortunately, there's no microSD expandable storage, a trend which Samsung seems to be continuing with, but it does support data transfer over the USB Type-C port. So if you have a USB stick with Type-C, or if you have a dongle with a microSD card, you're able to transfer your ROMs over nice and easily, which is exactly what I did. But without further ado, let's get this test underway. So we're kicking things off with some Dreamcast emulation using the Dream emulator, which I've just downloaded straight from the Play Store. Playing a bit of Street Fighter Third Strike, one of my favourite games from the sort of mid-2000s era. As you can see at the top left, I've got the frames per second counter, and you can see it's holding very steady at 60 frames. The input is nice and responsive. I'm using an Xbox Elite 2 controller, and I'm able to pull off my special moves with no issues whatsoever. Moving on to the next game, we've got some Jet Set Radio, but again you can see that FPS counter is holding pretty much firm at 60 frames. I must say the screen on this phone is really nice, and given the aspect ratio, playing games in 4:3 just looks really nice and really immersive. Normally when I play with a regular phone I'll force it into 16:9, but I think it's really worth sticking with 4:3 with the phone. And then just the last game for the Dreamcast, we've got some Tomb Raider Last Revelations. Again, holding firm at 60 frames. If you look at all the detail, the textures in the background, everything looks really nice and pretty much as it should. For any of my Tomb Raider fans, is it fair to say that the franchise went downhill after this game and it took a long time for it to be revived? Let me know in the comments below your favourite Tomb Raider game.
Oh, I think I can just about hold it together. Wouldn't want to spill it on your nice suit. At any rate.
So moving on to some PS1 emulation, I am using the EPSXE emulator, although a lot of people do rate the DuckStation emulator very highly. But to be honest, I just went with the emulator that was already on my phone. So I'm starting off with some Devil Dice. This is a relatively unknown game. If you've heard of this game then or played this game, let me know down below. But I wanted a just pretty simple one just to see how things ran. There's few colours, but it's not really the most graphically intensive game. But once the cubes do start dropping, then there can be a lot going on. But I played this game for a little while and no issues. Game ran smoothly, all the sound was fine, and I was only meant to play this game for like 5 minutes, ended up playing it for half an hour, and I still have no idea what I'm doing. So moving away from Devil Dice, we tried out some Tekken 3, one of the greatest PS1 games of all time, and as expected, this game ran absolutely perfect. Runs just as well as I remember on PS1, if not slightly better. You could definitely plug this into a larger screen and get the full PS1 experience that you would have got back in the day. I think the only downside with this particular emulator, and why I'm probably going to try DuckStation going forward, is that you have to adjust the sound latency. By default there's like a half-second audio latency, which can be a bit annoying, so you have to manually adjust the latency. But anyway, moving it away from Tekken 3 on the PS1 and onto Tekken 4 on the PS2. So here I'm using the Ether SX2 emulator, again downloaded straight from the Play Store. This emulator has definitely come a long way with its stability, and it's grown in popularity, so more people are playing it, which gives the developers more data so they know what they need to be able to fix. And there's a lot more games that are working on it now that weren't working before. But I've jumped into a Tekken 4 game and this runs pretty much flawlessly. There is a little bit of slowdown during the quick intro just before the fight starts, but it's minuscule, and then after that your game is running like butter. No slowdowns, no drop frames, no nothing. definitely really happy with the performance. And I did test these at 3x1080 resolution as well, and it was able to run just fine. Even if this phone was slightly less powerful, I'll be able to get away with 1x resolution, even 2x resolution. Next, we have some Kingdom Hearts, a game that admittedly, growing up, I didn't play this game at all, any of the Kingdom Hearts games, but I know it's got a massive following. And I do believe in one of my previous videos, someone requested it, so here you are. And as someone who's playing this for the very first time, it was a pretty good experience on this emulator. The game performed as well as I would expect on an actual console. So far it's looking pretty good for the Z Fold 4. And just to round things off with the PS2, we've got some Tony Hawk's Underground. And to be honest, this game ran pretty much just fine on the Z Fold 3, and it's the exact same story today on the Z Fold 4. Now moving on, we have some 3DS emulation. Now personally, this is one that I've always struggled with. On all the various flagships that I get my hands on, I've never really found one that performs to the level that I would like, and to the point where playing a game is enjoyable, or at least immersive. Now the Z Fold 4 definitely performs a lot better than last year's model, where Pokemon Sun, some of the characters would be completely transparent, so you literally couldn't play it. This is definitely a lot better now, but there's a lot of drop frames. The sound cuts out quite a lot. I did slap on some Super Mario Land 3D, and that was definitely a bit more playable, but not enjoyable. Now, one thing that did really impress me, after I ran all these tests and I was playing for about 2.5 to 3 hours, I picked up the device, held it in my hand, and it was cool to the touch. I was picking up expecting it to be really hot, but it was nice and cool. Sorry, I wasn't running any monitored apps in the background, but the phone wasn't hot. Next up, we have some GameCube emulation using the Dolphin emulator. Now, this is just a box standard Dolphin emulator you can download from the Play Store. Now, if I did run into any issues, I would have downloaded the official latest build of Dolphin, but playing Super Mario Sunshine, game ran absolutely just fine. I did try run it at 4x resolution and it just couldn't quite handle it. I ended up dropping it down to 2x resolution just to maintain frames and performance. And I found that was really the sweet spot for me to be able to get full seamless performance. So I also threw on some Need for Speed Underground, a game which for the most part runs okay, but you do tend to get slowdowns as you progress throughout the game. And although this game is more than playable, there were issues at the same point in each race where the game just kept on slowing down. I did play around with a lot of different settings, I changed the resolution, etc., and it was just the same issue at that point. So not quite enough to put me off playing, but definitely enough for me to not want to sink hours and hours into it. And then finally, we have some Wii emulation using the Dolphin emulator once again. First up, we have Mario Kart, and I think Mario Kart paired up with the high refresh rate of this phone gave a really nice experience. As you can see, the FPS counter on the top right of the screen, the game ran butter smooth pretty much the entire time. I was even able to pull out a clutch W right at the end, which I was happy about. But it's always a good sign when you can play Mario Kart Wii, because easily one of the greatest Wii games of all time. And then finally at the end, I threw in some Dragon Ball Z Budokai, and you can laugh as I flail about because I have no idea how to play this game. But performance was solid, I'm just trash. So to round off this emulation test, if you want a phone with a nice big screen that's going to play all your retro games and some of the more modern games, giving you solid performance, then the Z Fold 4 has your back. Now you just got to justify the cost. Anyway, it's been fun. My name's Antoine and I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.